Welcome to Harrison Hats.
Hey guys, welcome back to Harrison Hacks. Today I want to talk to you about the PlayStation Classic that's been announced by Sony. I think it's really cool. I've already got my pre-order in for BestBuy.com. I'm going to be picking that up December 3rd, day of. I already booked the day off work and everything. I'm ready to go. Um, but I wanted to talk about the game list. So far, they've officially announced we're getting Final Fantasy VII, Jumping Flash, Ridge Racer Type 4, Tekken 3, and Wild Arms. So I've gone and expanded that list to what I would do if I could only have 20 games. I'm thinking the internal memory on this is either going to be 16 gigabytes of flash memory, but it possibly could be upwards of 32 gigabytes. Not a lot for PlayStation games, but it should be enough to get, not the entire catalog, of course, but enough to get your favorite games on there up and running once this thing is hacked, and we all know eventually it will get hacked. I'm hoping it's large enough to fit an internal SSD or potentially have a SD card slot in the back, or what I was hoping to do actually was have the memory card port and 3D print a memory card with a SD card in it. So hopefully it could be modded physically as well if need be to add more storage. But I think 32 gigabytes, if that's where it's at, is great. 16's a little on the light side. Considering Final Fantasy VII alone would be over 2 gigs, being 3 discs. Or in and around the 2 gigabyte realm. So I'm going to go through the list, and feel free to post in the comments any games that you guys think that you'd want in your PlayStation Classic Edition. But these are 20 games. I stuck with the number 20. It was hard. At the end of this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about some honorable mentions. I've got a handful there as well, and some that I probably just went through the list and just completely skipped through. So that's why, it'd be great if you guys could post in the comments your favorite games and what you'd like to see on the PlayStation Classic Edition lineup. So without further ado, let's get this rolling. So as you can see, Final Fantasy VII is already going to be included. I put Gran Turismo. I like Gran Turismo. I think it's a great racing game. I know we're getting Ridge Racer Type 4, but Gran Turismo just, to me, still holds up. I still enjoy playing it. Jumping Flash, I have zero knowledge about this. When I get some free time, I'm actually going to get into it and see if I enjoy it, but never heard of it until the announcement that it was going to be on the Classic Edition. Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, it's just a great game no matter what platform you play it on. I enjoy it on the PlayStation, and with the USB ports, hopefully an arcade stick can be connected to the PlayStation Classic Edition. Another game I remember playing when I was younger is MediEvil. So an honorable mention I'll mention is MediEvil 2. I like both. I think they're great games, and it's good for everybody. It says T for teen, but really, I mean, kids can play it. It's perfectly fine. It's an excellent game, and I still enjoy it to this day. Metal Gear Solid. I think that was a huge game back in the day, and I think it should be included on Sony's ROM list, games list, whatever they like to call it. But definitely Metal Gear Solid is one of the top games ever for the PlayStation 1. I was a big Mortal Kombat fan when I was younger, so the Mortal Kombat trilogy would suit me well on the system. Definitely would get a rise out of playing that yet again. See, Ridge Racer Type 4, I honestly am not familiar with it very much. I've seen some people play it. I've never gotten into it myself. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I play a little bit more of it. Resident Evil Director's Cut. So it doesn't even have to be the Director's Cut, but Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil to me is the best Resident Evil. And that's up for debate with many people. But in my personal opinion, it's still my favorite. The very first Resident Evil is my favorite of the franchise. Spyro the Dragon. You got to have some kids games on there, and I enjoy playing Spyro. I know kids love playing Spyro. My kid loves playing Spyro, so Definitely throw that on there. There's a bunch of sequels as well, but again, I think the first Spyro was the best Spyro. Tekken 3, we know that's officially going to be included. It's a great game, and it's just one of those fighting games that you could have some friends over and really rock it, and just play for a couple hours at least, and enjoy yourselves. The original Tomb Raider game, excellent game back in the day. I remember playing this for hours and hours and hours. I've actually gotten into it recently. I just haven't had a chance to actually play through the entire game, but I think Tomb Raider is definitely deserving to be on the list. My favorite Tony Hawk PlayStation game ever is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. I couldn't afford to buy the game back in the day, but someone gave me a demo disc back when they had PlayStation 1 demo discs, and I played the heck out of this. I mean, on the demo. Eventually down the road, I got some money together and bought the actual game. But I just remember, having a lot of fun playing Tony Hawk 2. So there's a bunch of Twisted Metals. I chose Small Brawl, and this was one that I got into earlier on this year. Didn't realize there was a Small Brawl. I knew that I played the others, but I didn't realize this one was out there. I actually saw it on one of Mad Little Pixel's videos, or a live stream, one or the other. But definitely I checked it out and really enjoyed it, and still enjoying it to this day. So give that a check if you haven't played it before. Wild Arms is officially included, and I do want to make an honorable mention for Wild Arms 2, because they're both great games. I do understand why they would put the first one. It was a little bit better than the second one, in my opinion, um, but it's a great game all around, and definitely there's a reason why they're including it. Another one would be Xenogears. So Xenogears is another game I got into later on in life, as recently. And it's just a phenomenal game. It's actually really well done. I really enjoy it, but I'm a big fan of what Squaresoft does, or Square Enix, whichever you want to call it. But definitely give that a check out. It's worth your time. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So I love Castlevania games. I'm still a fan of the NES versions. Those are my three favorite. But if we're talking later on down the road for the Castlevania franchise, definitely Symphony of the Night is a great one. Um, and so is Dracula X Chronicles for the PSP. But Symphony of the Night is definitely something you should check out. When I first got my PlayStation, it came bundled with Crash Bandicoot, and I think this is a phenomenal game. It's still so fun to play, and it's another one of those ones where the franchise has continued on for years, but nothing has matched the first. In my mind, I just think it's still a great game, and it holds up for me. And all those blocky PlayStation graphics, I don't know, it just looks really good to me. Die Hard Trilogy, excellent game. Will we get it? Probably not. I mean, they're gonna have to pay to have this game on there, and I don't think they want to share too much of their profits. But definitely a great game, Die Hard Trilogy, and there is Die Hard Trilogy 2, Viva Las Vegas, so definitely give that one a check out as well. Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis is a great game. I was just talking to a guy at work about it today, and then another guy said, "Hey, this has Tekken 3," and he thought that was great as well. But Dino Crisis is a great game. Dino Crisis 2 is a great game. The other thing we talked about today was the Xbox Dino Crisis, and that just kind of, for me, was a flop, and he agreed completely. He thought it was a flop as well. I don't think anything holds up to the original Dino Crisis. Final Fantasy VII we know is included. We started the video with that. And again, I mean, it's just a classic game. And it's Final Fantasy VII is probably the video game aside from NES games, because I'm a huge NES fan. It is my favorite console of all time. But aside from NES, Final Fantasy VII I put the most hours into this game. I mean, we used to get some beers. Me and my buddies would sit there and take turns, play for hours, and then it's like, okay, my hands are cramped, I'm tired, it's your turn. We had the strategy guide, and oh man, it was crazy. And this is something where I actually, once I get some free time, which is not in the foreseeable future, but once I do, I'd like to to play through Final Fantasy VII and clear everything. I mean, I want to complete it 100%. Whether or not that's even possible, I don't know, but I'd like to give it a go. So I'm gonna do some honorable mentions here. I did note a couple of them already, but I'm just gonna read out just a handful that I have. So Final Fantasy VIII. At first, when it first came out, my cousin got it, and I was like, I don't know, man. It looked different, it played a little different, but then when I started actually playing instead of watching someone else playing it, I couldn't put the controller down. I was like, okay, this is a great sequel to Final Fantasy VII. And same with Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX, I went out and bought, um, and games aren't cheap. So, and I was a young guy, but I went and bought Final Fantasy IX and played it all the way through and just fell in love with that game as well. Um, I don't think I completed it 100%, but I know I played all the way through it. Another one would be Parasite Eve and Parasite Eve 2. If you haven't had the opportunity to play the Parasite Eve games, I want to say if you're into um, RPGs and things like that, Parasite Eves are definitely something you want to check out. Earlier I had mentioned Wild Arms 2. That's another honorable mention. And another sports title that I would put on here, but I don't think they would get the licensing for it because WWE is a greedy machine. Um, which I may bring back. I may bring back Harrison Hustle videos on this channel as opposed to having a second channel because I've got a lot to talk about as far as the world of wrestling right now. But anyways, the game that I want to mention is WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role. It's one of my favorite wrestling games. I didn't think there was too many great wrestling games for the PlayStation 1, and a lot of them don't hold up. I mean, for the N64, I can play WCW NWO Revenge. I can play No Mercy. My favorite on N64 would be WrestleMania 2000. I mean, the list goes on for great wrestling games. WrestleFest for the arcade is one of my favorites. But WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, if I had to choose one for the PlayStation, that would definitely be the wrestling game I would choose. And the ECW games weren't bad either. But that's my PlayStation Classic list. Like I said, post in the comments. Let me know what your list would be. Any games that you would take from this list and say, hell yeah, or nah, I think I'd flip it for this one, or whatever you think. But that's it for this video, guys. I just want to talk to you a little bit about what I would choose for the Classic Edition. You know it's coming out December 3rd. Make sure you get your pre-orders. I know it seems a little pricey, but to be honest, it's a Sony product. It's not an AtGames product licensed by Sony. It's a legitimate Sony product, and I don't think they're going to want to tarnish their name by releasing a Classic Edition that's no good. Because, yes, it has nothing to do with the PlayStation 4, but it's still Sony's name on this sucker, and I think that if if they want to compete with Nintendo's Classic Editions, they're going to have to bring the same quality. I'm a firm believer in that. So again, guys, I really appreciate you watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, have a good day.